Video contains violent content, details that are not suitable for common perception. Please consider before watching. Chapter 173, Three Eyes, 1. Looking at the eyeball shrinking in agony, Mok Jae-eun chuckled. The guy who had exuded such tremendous power and triggered caution when he had a body was now powerless and couldn't do anything. As expected, although it was somewhat of a gamble, the venture had succeeded. If he hadn't dealt with the guy now, more troublesome things would have happened. Anyway, he had found out the true nature of the guy's real body and neutralized his power, so should he crush it now? Squish. Arg. The eyeball, already suffering from the poison, hastily revealed its voice when Mok Jae-eun pressed it, feeling its life was in danger. Stop. Oh. It can speak. Yeo Su-rin looked at the eyeball with wide eyes. On the other hand, Mok Jae-eun, without showing any surprise, lifted the eyeball to face his own eyes. Then he smiled brightly and said, "So you can talk. Cuff this bastard. You're not coming to your senses." Squish. Mok Jae-eun applied more force to his fingers. Then the eyeball desperately shouted at Mok Jae-eun. "Stop. Stop what? Just die like this." Splat. As Mok Jae-eun applied more force, black blood spurted out from various parts of the eyeball. Then the eyeball's attitude changed drastically. "Please spare me." "What? Spare me? I'll do anything you want, so please let me live." Heh. Seeing the eyeball turn cowardly, Yeo Su-rin raised the corners of her mouth and showed interest. Considering that the eyeball itself possessed a will, it was undoubtedly a monster. To think that demonic energy had infused into an eyeball, a mere part of the human body, and given it self-will. It was a new fact that had not been known to the diviner community. At that moment, Mok Jae-eun said, "What can you do in that state? Tell me what you want. I'll do anything. If you desire gold, silver, and treasures, I'll fill the storage to the brim. If you want power, I'll use my influence to make you an executive of the Heaven and Earth Society. Or if you desire strength, I'll obtain any martial art or spiritual medicine you want." The eyeball stated everything it could do. If it could just overcome this crisis, opportunities would arise at any time. There was no need to consider it cowardly. In the first place, self-esteem was just an unnecessary emotion that humans possessed. "Please just spare my life. After granting your wish, I'll go far away and never get involved with you again. You're making quite tempting offers. Just spare me. I'll keep my promise." "How did you do that earlier? What are you talking about? You stopped all senses and movements except for consciousness, as if time had stopped." "What?" At Mok Jae-eun's words, the eyeball couldn't hide its bewilderment. That was because when performing the time-space all-deception technique, a supreme forbidden technique, the only one who could have a flow within that space was the caster. For all living beings except the caster, time and space itself would come to a halt. Who the hell is this bastard? It didn't make sense. He had consciousness within the time-space all-deception technique. This was a technique of the supreme forbidden arts that was prohibited even in ancient times when the celestial realm was said to be open. Although there were several restrictions, no one could possess consciousness within it. To have consciousness in that state. Could it be that you're not a living being? Asking a rude question to someone who's breathing just fine. No, how can a living human? Enough with the nonsense. How do you perform that technique? At Mok Jae-eun's words, the eyeball remained silent for a moment. Whatever the case, the important thing right now was to somehow please this bastard and survive. "Are you referring to the time-space all-deception technique?" "Oh, so that's the name of the technique?" "Yes. I'd like to learn that technique." At Mok Jae-eun's words, Yeo Su-rin, who had been watching, interjected. "What technique?" "Ah, there's something like that." As Mok Jae-eun waved his hand lightly as if telling her to ignore it, Yeo Su-rin approached and linked arms with him, saying, "Hey, we've gone through life and death together, almost like comrades in arms. Teach me too." Squish. Yeo Su-rin pulled Mok Jae-eun's arm close to her ample bosom. He knew. Men were subtly weak to such temptations. She had tried it a few times on her brothers and found it very effective. However, "What are you doing?" "What's this?" This wasn't the reaction she expected. Usually they would get shy or happy in this situation. Does this person not like this kind of thing? As she wondered, Mok Jae-eun tilted his head and asked, "Are you trying to seduce me with your body?" Blush. Instantly her face turned red. "No, what are you saying? Who's seducing with their body? You're more mischievous than you look." Humph. Yeo Surin unlinked her arm and stepped away from Mok Jae-eun. It was truly embarrassing. She had seen many men, but this was the first time she had seen someone say such things so nonchalantly with a dry face and eyes. She was feeling more embarrassed herself. As she moved away, Mok Jae-eun asked the eyeball again, "It would be even better if there's a book that compiles that technique." "There's no such book." "There isn't. The time-space all-deception technique is a supreme forbidden technique consisting of 63,850,987 pictograms. It can't be learned in a short period." Pictograms. Yes. It's written in a script before Chinese characters, and it takes several years just to familiarize yourself with and memorize it. Several years. It's quite long. It takes a considerable amount of time just to transcribe it. If you really want, I can do it if you provide me with a new body. It's just that it will take that much time. At the eyeball's words, Mok Jae-eun clicked his tongue. Memorizing wasn't a problem. However, if it took that long to transcribe, it was essentially a technique he couldn't learn right away. Moreover, whatever the case, he couldn't give this eyeball a body. "You're not trying to deceive me, are you?" "I swear on my existence. This is absolutely not a lie." "An oath, huh? Well then, do you have any other useful techniques?" "Apart from the Pavilion Master's room, I have my own private office. There are 3 books sealed with the 8 trigrams technique. I've recorded the sorcery techniques and so on that I've collected over the years." "Good. If there's anything else you want, tell me. As long as you spare my life however much." Before the eyeball could finish speaking. At that moment, a huge shadowy flap of wings appeared in the Pavilion Master's office where they were. At the same time, the monster Toru appeared, its size reduced, scraping its front hooves on the floor with an angry expression. "They're here quickly." The eyeball clicked its tongue inwardly. If they had come a little earlier, this mess wouldn't have happened. It was too late now. If Mok Jae-eun applied just a little more force with his hand, it would burst and die. Gruer. Flap flap. The tremendous demonic energy of the 2 monsters overturning their surroundings made Yeo Surin take out a talisman and assume a combat stance. "To say I forgot about the beasts." Mok Jae-eun replied with an indifferent gaze, looking at the monsters blocking the left and right. "Indeed. Hey eyeball. Quickly order them not to attack." "Eyeball? This wench really—" At her words, the eyeball's insides boiled, but it managed to endure and spoke. "Toru Humwon, stop. Grr. Grr." But something was strange. The eyeball had given an order to the 2 monsters that could be considered its familiars, but the atmosphere was unusual. Toru, who was scraping the floor with its hooves, looked like it would charge at any moment. "Hey eyeball. Are you sure you gave the order? Why are they acting like that? They've gone out of control." "What? What do you mean?" "Damn it. This is why I shouldn't have split the subject." The eyeball was just as perplexed by the situation. That was because when it had made those 2 monsters its familiars, it had divided the subject of that bond between Cho Taechong's soul and itself. It was an experiment to split the command authority when using them as familiars, but it hadn't known there would be such side effects. Ruhar. At that moment, Toru charged towards Mok Jae-eun. Toru was furious at Mok Jae-eun, who had taken away one of its eyes. As Toru fiercely rushed towards Mok Jae-eun, whoosh. At that moment, Toru passed through the entrance of smoke that had appeared in the middle. It works. Yeo Surin had created the door. Craw. Thud. The sound of falling and a loud noise echoed from beyond the door. Unable to create a long-distance door of smoke without a medium, she had used her momentary wit to create an entrance in the air higher than the 4th floor. As a result, the monster Toru had fallen straight down. Having succeeded in this by chance, she let out a sigh of relief. But at that very moment, roar! The fallen monster Toru let out a roar and then leaped towards the entrance with tremendous force. Startled, she rotated her hand with the treasure in the opposite direction. At that moment, Toru's horn and head popped out at an incredible speed. Yua! Hover! Crack! As the door of smoke closed, Toru's head got caught in the gap and was severed. What? What was going on? She had never experienced getting caught in a door of smoke, so she was dumbfounded by this absurd result. Having never caught a monster-level beast before, she couldn't tell if she should consider this skill or luck. Whatever. Anyway, wasn't it as if she had caught it? With that, Yeo Su-rin became elated and shouted, turning her head, "Hey, I caught Toru!" Suddenly her eyes widened. That was because Mok Jae-eun was already standing on the body of the monster Hyun-won, whose upper body was in the form of a giant bird and lower body was in the form of a hornet, grabbing one of its wings. Wow! Is that man really a monster? How did he grab a monster-level beast with strength alone without using any techniques? The monster Hyun-won was flapping its wings but couldn't shake off Mok Jae-eun's hand. She wasn't the only one surprised. The eyeball was also dumbfounded as it looked at Mok Jae-eun. In some ways, Hyun-won possessed a power that was even more troublesome than Toru. Yet before Hyun-won could do anything, Mok Jae-eun, who had moved at a tremendous speed, instantly stepped on its back and grabbed its wing. With this level of skill, he's much stronger than the average martial artists of the Heaven and Earth Society. Who the hell is this guy? I've never heard of this name before. Even ordinary martial artists couldn't handle a monster-level beast. But this guy overpowered Hyun-won instead. This level of martial prowess was only possible for high-ranking executives within the Heaven and Earth Society, so its identity was unknown. Meanwhile, Mok Jae-eun, while holding the monster Hyun-won, said to the eyeball, "I have a question." "What is it?" "Why did you put that seal in the secret chamber of the Corpse Blood Valley?" "Seal? What are you talking about?" "The scroll inside that wooden box." "A scroll? I have no idea what you're talking about." At the eyeball's answer, Mok Jae-eun's eyes narrowed. "It doesn't know? Well, this is." Since it was called the Three Eyes, he had thought this eyeball had sealed that monstrous raccoon dog. But the eyeball itself seemed to have no clue. If that was the case, it means it wasn't this guy. This was a completely unexpected result. Chapter 174, Three Eyes 2. A scroll? I have no idea what you're talking about. At the eyeball's answer, Mok Jae-eun's eyes narrowed. He had naturally assumed the eyeball was the Three Eyes and had sealed the monstrous raccoon dog in the Corpse Blood Valley secret chamber. But the eyeball itself seemed to have no clue. If that was the case, it means it wasn't this guy. This was a completely unexpected result. Then who on earth had sealed that monstrous raccoon dog there? They had definitely said it was a diviner with 3 eyes. At that moment the eyeball spoke. "I don't know what you're talking about, but I've never been to the secret chamber of the Corpse Blood Valley." "You've never been there?" "That's right." Mok Jae-eun, who had been frowning, stared intently at the eyeball and asked, "Do you really not know about a beast that looks like a raccoon dog?" "A raccoon dog-like beast?" "Yes." Then the eyeball trembled severely and convulsed. Its appearance seemed as if it was feeling fear. Why was this eyeball reacting like this all of a sudden? He wondered. "See, could you be referring to the usurping Sea King, the Gwancheongu one?" "Gwancheongu?" Mok Jae-eun asked back at the unfamiliar name. Could that be the name of the monstrous raccoon dog? Meanwhile, Yeo Su-rin, who had been keeping her distance due to the earlier embarrassment, suddenly showed interest with a surprised face. "What did you say just now?" "Pardon? Did you mention Gwancheongu?" Mok Jae-eun turned his head towards Yeo Su-rin and asked back. "Do you know about it?" "Of course I do. My master told me about it." "Your master, you mean?" "Yes, that person. Scarlet-tailed old immortal. Yeo Su-rin's master and the pavilion master of Harmonious Immortal Pavilion, known to be one of the 2 most mysterious among the 64 pavilions of diviners." Yeo Su-rin answered with sparkling eyes as if intrigued. "My master had told me about it." "What is it?" "Huh. Don't tell me you don't know about the 6 spiritual beasts that have existed since ancient times." "The 6 spiritual beasts?" Of course there was no way he could have known. At Mok Jae-eun's reaction, Yeo Su-rin made a perplexed expression. Is this man really a diviner who learned sorcery? Meanwhile the eyeball spoke in a trembling voice. "They are the ones at the pinnacle of beasts. They are not beings that a human wench like you can carelessly judge." At this, Mok Jae-eun asked, "The pinnacle of beasts? Are they divine beasts by any chance?" According to the classic of mountains and seas that he had memorized, it was known that beasts were divided into 6 grades based on their level of danger and power. The lowest grade was fierce beasts. The beast Gaio that Mok Jae-eun had first encountered in MTOA was precisely the fierce beast with the lowest level. Of course, even if the level was low, they were still stronger than ordinary vengeful spirits. The next grade, called the 4th grade, was precisely the monstrous beast. The wolf-shaped monster that had made the sound of a pig's cry, encountered during the path of the corpse Blood Valley's gate, was the monstrous beast called Galgio. The next grade, the third grade, was the demonic beasts, and Hume 1, the beast from Kunlun Mountain whose wing was being held by Mok Jiongun's hand and was struggling, belonged to this category. Next was the second grade, the diabolic beasts, which were so rare that even renowned diviners could hardly see them, and they were called moving disasters. And there were beasts that were called natural disasters if even one of them appeared, and they were referred to as spiritual beasts. These spiritual beasts were beings that might appear once every few hundred years, and even if only one of them emerged, they were beasts in the realm of calamity that could devastate an entire city. Divine beasts. The final grade, divine beasts. According to the classic of mountains and seas, divine beasts were beings that might appear once every few thousand years, and they were in the realm of heavenly energy or divine punishment that humans could not handle, so they could lead to the destruction of a nation and the extinction of the human race, known as a great calamity. Therefore Mok Jiongun wondered if they were divine beasts since they were referred to as the pinnacle of beasts. However, divine beasts? They can't exist in this world in the first place. If the demonic energy reaches that level, it surpasses the natural order. Natural order? You don't know what the natural order is? What is it? The natural order is what sustains this world. Well, it's difficult for humans to understand. You're speaking ambiguously. The natural order is the natural order. If you go beyond that realm, you have no choice but to cross over to the other side of the boundary due to the natural order. The other side of the boundary? As he wondered, Yeo Surin interjected. It refers to ascending to immortality. Ascending to immortality? Curiosity flashed in Mok Jiongun's eyes. Come to think of it, he had heard about this when learning the sword and martial arts from Chong Ryong. The origin of internal energy, the foundation of martial arts, stems from the Taoist breathing techniques. Taoism cultivates internal energy through breathing methods and thereby evolves the physical body. The evolution of the physical body? Do you mean becoming stronger? That's part of it, but the evolution Taoism refers to means breaking through the limitations of the physical body, realizing the flow of heavenly energy and reaching spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening? Yes. That's what they call ascending to immortality or undergoing metamorphosis and ascending to immortality. Undergoing metamorphosis and ascending to immortality? Does it mean becoming an immortal and ascending to the heavens? Yes. Those who practice martial arts naturally aim for ascension by attaining enlightenment through martial arts. Of course, nowadays it has faded and martial arts have become a mere symbol of power and a tool to protect oneself and kill others. Oh. But isn't that the truth? Yes. The essence of martial arts was originally not to cultivate the Tao but to easily kill others. However, if you want to reach a higher realm, you need to think more transcendentally. This was Chong Ryong's teaching. She said that if one wanted to learn martial arts and reach a higher realm, one should aim for ascension. Of course, Mok Jiongun had no interest in that at all. His goal was to gain the power for revenge rather than becoming an immortal. But out of curiosity he had asked, "By the way, Chong Ryong, have there been any actual cases of ascension?" There have been. Bodhidharma, known as the founder of the Chinese martial arts, Zhang Sanfeng, who founded the Wudong sect, and the Sword Immortal, who was said to have beheaded a dragon with a single strike. Apart from them, there must be unknown extraordinary individuals as well. The world is full of unknowns. So there have been actual cases of ascension. Of course, that's why it's the goal. If the metamorphosis and ascension to immortality that Chong Ryong mentioned referred to crossing over to the other side of the boundary, as the eyeball said, did it mean that humans could also reach the realm of divine beasts, as described in the classic of mountains and seas, by honing their martial arts? Somehow both the world of sorcery and the martial world seemed to converge towards the end. As his thoughts deepened, the eyeball spoke again. Yes, I think that was the case. Humans referred to crossing the boundary due to the natural order as ascending to immortality. So those 6 beasts you mentioned. The 6 demons. Pardon. Beasts who have awakened intelligence call them the 6 demons or the 6 demon kings. At the eyeball's words, Mok Jiongun's eyes slightly narrowed. He had considered it a deformed creature, but this confirmed the eyeball's true identity. The guy itself also recognized itself as a beast, in other words, a monster. Well, it was strange to dismiss a being with this level of demonic energy and self-will as a mere byproduct of deformity. The Six Demon Kings. That's quite a grandiose title. Wow, this is the first time I've heard of this too. Yeo Surin spoke with sparkling eyes. She was also very interested in beasts, but encountering a beast with intelligence was like finding a needle in a haystack. Therefore, when she talked about the leader of the six spiritual beasts that she had heard from her master from the perspective of a beast, she naturally found it intriguing. Eyeball, tell me more. I want to know if the six demons you're talking about are the same as the leaders of the six spiritual beasts I know. At her pestering, the eyeball tightly shut its mouth. It was already trying to please this guy, so it wondered if it really had to reveal this to this wench as well. At that moment, Mok Jiongun spoke up. Regardless of what they're called, anyway, that monstrous raccoon dog is called Guanqianggu, right? It's the usurping Sea King. A voice filled with fear. Just from this reaction, the eyeball seemed to have considerable reverence for the monstrous raccoon dog. Come to think of it, the monstrous raccoon dog possessed tremendous demonic energy even when it was sealed, and its strength was significantly weakened. It was understandable for the eyeball to be afraid. Well, whatever it is, the usurping Sea King or Guanqianggu, there are six beasts of that level, right? That's right. Do you know all of those beings? How could I not know? At the eyeball's words, Mok Jiongun pondered for a moment. He wondered if he really needed to know about those beings, but it was just in case. Who knew if that monstrous raccoon dog, no Guanqianggu, was also sealed in the secret chamber of the Corpse Blood Valley? It wouldn't be bad to know about these beings to some extent for the future. Can you tell me what kinds of beings they are? What do you call the white ox spiritual beast? At that moment, Yeo Surin interrupted. Mok Jiongun looked at her with an annoyed expression. Then she pouted her lips and said, I helped you too, so I can at least ask this much. At her words, Mok Jiongun shrugged his shoulders as if telling her to do as she pleased. With that, Yeo Surin asked with a delighted face and a grin, what do you call that huge white ox spiritual beast whose length reaches hundreds of jang from head to tail? The Great Strength King. The Great Strength King? So beasts call that giant ox spiritual beast that. Then what about the dragon that couldn't ascend to the heavens and fell into depravity? The Dragon Demon King. What about the spiritual beast of the North Sea, the phoenix whose wings have turned white? The White Phoenix Demon King. Literally. Then what about the spiritual beast in the form of a lion with black wings and sharp spiky mane? The Lion Demon King. Thanks to Yeo Surin's questions and the eyeball's answers, Mok Jiongun naturally learned about the appearance of the spiritual beasts and their titles. He thought he did well to let her ask the questions on purpose. Meanwhile, Yeo Surin continued to ask, that stone ape trapped in the Five-Finger Mountain? No. How do you know what I'm going to ask before I even ask it? The being you mention has already disappeared long ago due to the natural order. It no longer belongs to the six demons. It's a bit different from what my master told me. At Yeo Surin's words, the eyeball asked in disbelief, you wench, who the hell is that master of yours? How does he know about the six demons from long ago? Come to think of it, you pretended to be a diviner, so you must know who our master is, right? What? Have you heard of the scarlet-tailed old immortal? Could it be the pavilion master of Harmonious Immortal Pavilion, one of the six diviner gods? The eyeball immediately recognized which pavilion and who it was upon hearing the name. Since it shared a body with Master Diviner Cho Taechong, it naturally knew about the existence of renowned diviners. They were natural enemies to the beast eyeball. Yeo Surin looked at Mok Jiongun with a triumphant expression and said, see? Even this deformed creature knows about my master. Yes. At Mok Jiongun's dry response, Yeo Surin's lips pouted like a duck. Is this person really a diviner? How could he show no interest at all when her master was so renowned and famous? Ordinary diviners would usually try to establish connections by any means. Clicking her tongue inwardly, Yeo Surin asked the eyeball again, no, if it's not the spiritual beast trapped in the Five-Finger Mountain, then what is the remaining one of the six demons? The Hundred-Face King. The Hundred-Face King? That's right. 100 faces? I've never heard of it. What kind of spiritual beast is it? At Yeo Surin's question, the eyeball held by Mok Jiongun's hand trembled. Even more than when it talked about the usurping Sea King Guanqianggu. The eyeball shrank and began to speak. It is said to be even worse than the Great Strength King, who is known to be the oldest among the six demons. That being is the embodiment of evil intent itself and leads everything to destruction. leads to destruction? Because of that being, several nations such as the Yin and Zhou dynasties have been destroyed since ancient times. Yin and Zhou? Don't tell me the spiritual beast you're talking about. Before Yeo Surin could finish her sentence, the eyeball spoke in a meaningful voice. A fox with golden fur and 9 tails. The Golden Nine-Tailed Fox. Chapter 175, 3 Eyes 3. Yin and Zhou? Could it be that the spiritual beast you're talking about? That's right. The 9-tailed fox beast with golden fur. The Golden Nine-Tailed Fox. At the eyeball's meaningful words, Yeo Surin couldn't hide her shock. The Golden Nine-Tailed Fox? It seems to be a beast in the form of a fox, right? On the other hand, Mok Jiangun, who had no knowledge of this being, showed a reaction no different from when discussing the other leaders of the 6 demons. The 100-faced Golden Nine-Tailed Fox. The 100-faced Golden Nine-Tailed Fox? Haven't you heard of it? No. How could he have known when he didn't even know about the other leaders of the spiritual beasts? Looking at Mok Jiangun, Yeo Surin spoke in a slightly trembling voice, unlike a moment ago. It's a being different from other beasts. Different, you say? Beasts are usually not well known to humans because most of them have little interest in the human world. Is that so? But this one is different. Different in what way? Isn't it just an ancient and powerful beast? In the books that diviners read, such as the Encyclopedia of Strange Creatures from Mountains and Seas, supernatural records about monsters are naturally described. But the Golden Nine-Tailed Fox has its records left even in ancient books and even in historical records. Even in historical records? Historical records were no different from official histories compiled by the state. Even the martial world avoided leaving records, so it was quite interesting that historians had left them. At this, Mok Jiangun said, I've read quite a few books related to historical records, but I've never heard of a story about a fox beast. The earliest record is from the time of King Zhou of the Shang dynasty. The Shang dynasty? That's quite a long time ago. Yes, it's written in the historical records of that time. A fox monster that ate King Zhou's concubine Su Yang and transformed into her, causing the king to become depraved and create a garden called Juqi Rulan to indulge in pleasure and commit numerous tyrannies. As a result, the Shang dynasty was destroyed by King Wu of the Zhou dynasty. I think I've heard of it vaguely. The story of a king who fell for a concubine named Daji and brought ruin to his country. But it's a bit different from what I knew. This is the true original version of the historical record. The original version. It is also called the original text of the historical record. In the original text of the historical record, the truths that the author truly wanted to convey were recorded. The concubine Daji of the Shang dynasty, Bao Si of the Zhou dynasty, Lady Huayang of India, Wakasa and Tamamonome of Japan. It appeared in numerous forms and names, influencing the fate and history of nations. At Yeo Surin's words, Mok Jiangun's eyes narrowed. Listening to it, this beast called the Golden Nine-Tailed Fox was different from other monsters. As she said, it was heavily involved in the human world. Ordinary beasts usually didn't think of humans as anything more than food. This was no different from humans not being interested in the world of insects or animals. This monster has a lot more interest in humans than I thought. That's right. It's strange to that extent. So it must have infiltrated human society and caused all sorts of trouble. I can see why it's called the 100-Face. The 100-Face King, the Golden Nine-Tailed Fox. This ancient great fox beast always appeared in different forms and led a village at the least or a nation at the worst, to the path of destruction. It was not for nothing that it was said to have 100 faces. A beast with a keen interest in humans. In some ways it's quite a troublesome being. It goes beyond troublesome. It's the worst beast. My master also said that the Golden Nine-Tailed Fox is the most dangerous because it can exploit humans' dark emotions and lead them to depravity. Depravity. Exploiting emotions and leading to depravity. What a truly strange beast. I wonder why it keeps doing such things. If it had toyed with humans to that extent, there would be no one who knew humans better than that being. Yet it had repeatedly done so. It's one of two things. Amusement or... Wait a minute, thinking about it, you're no different from the Golden Nine-Tailed Fox, eyeball. At that moment, Yeo Surin, who had been talking about the Golden Nine-Tailed Fox, glanced at the eyeball held by Mok Jiangun's fingers and spoke. At this, the eyeball trembled and pleaded. I won't interfere with human affairs anymore. So please spare my life. How many humans have you killed and now you're asking to be spared? Master Mok, just kill it. Yeo Su-rin pointed at the eyeball with her finger, then ran her thumb across her neck and stuck out her tongue mimicking death. Squawk. This bitch. The eyeball cursed at Yeo Su-rin inwardly. Then it pleaded to Mok Jae-eun. After all, he was the one with the choice. Didn't I tell you everything you asked for? Please spare me. There's one more thing I want to ask before that. Ask me anything. I'll tell you everything I know. There are others besides you, right? What? At the eyeball's question, Mok Jae-eun chuckled. Then he lifted the eyeball to face his own eyes and said, Your answer was a bit slow. No, I don't properly understand what you're. I'm asking if there are other 3 eyes besides you. The one who reacted to Mok Jae-eun's question was Yeo Su-rin instead. What are you saying now? What do you mean by asking if there are more 3 eyes? There's a sealed wooden box in the corpse Blood Valley. The beast sealed inside that box said that the one who imprisoned it was a 3 eyes in diviner attire. A 3 eyes in diviner attire? Then it's this eyeball, isn't it? I thought so too. But it has no idea at all. Right. What are you talking about? It might be an old incident that I don't remember. All the affairs within the Heaven and Earth Society. Do you know what's sealed in the wooden box? The eyeball shut its mouth. If you know, then tell me. Seeing the eyeball suddenly become silent, Yeo Su-rin frowned. What on earth was this situation? The 3 eyes mentioned by her master was undoubtedly this eyeball. A being in the form of a diviner who commanded 2 monster beasts as familiars. If not this one, then who else could it be? That can't be. Master Mok, could you be mistaken about something? My master said that the 3 eyes in the Heaven and Earth Society would disrupt the heavenly chi. Come to think of it, her master had never specified anyone. To be precise, he had said this. Go and observe. A being with a 3rd eye will appear in the Heaven and Earth Society and disrupt the heavenly chi. Then what the hell is this eyeball? It's the 3 eyes. But there could be another 3 eyes, so there's no need to think too much about it. Don't you agree, Mr. Eyeball? At Mok Jae-eun's words, the eyeball hesitated and said, I really don't know. Simple, isn't it? What? When talking about the 6 demons and such, you were afraid but still spoke well. But when I mention another 3 eyes, you're trying your best not to show any reaction. What are you talking about? Human, I really don't know. Yes, the world is vast, so how could there not be another being like me? But I have no idea what you're. Squish. Arg. It would be better to talk than to die here, wouldn't it? Arg, I really don't know. If you think I'm lying, then keep resisting like that. As Mok Jae-eun applied more force to his fingers, the eyeball reached the point of almost being crushed. It seemed like it would burst at any moment and release white fluid. Then the eyeball hurriedly tried to say something. If I tell you, I'll die. What? A forbidden technique is placed on me. A forbidden technique? That's right. What kind of forbidden technique? I don't know. A part of my memory is completely gone, and whenever I try to forcefully recall it, the technique activates and makes me lose consciousness. Mok Jae-eun tried to form a hand seal. Don't do it. I also tried to forcefully undo the forbidden technique and almost burst. Is that so? The 86 widely known undoing techniques and 13 secret undoing techniques were useless. I want to tell you, but since my life is at stake, I have no choice in this matter. Please spare. Then there's no more need for you. What? I'll send you off. Was he going to spare its life? The eyeball, which had been tense for a while, let out a sigh of relief. Hover. Swoosh. At that moment, the surroundings were engulfed in darkness. And with that, the eyeball was crushed by something. Crunch, crunch. Coo. Eek. Yeo Su-rin looked at Mok Jae-eun with a perplexed expression. Are you crazy? Munch, munch. Mok Jae-eun chewed the eyeball thoroughly, then swallowed it and said nonchalantly, So this is the taste of a beast's eyeball. What? It's salty and sticky. Know what you're saying now. At Mok Jae-eun's words, Yeo Su-rin showed a genuinely disgusted expression. Even if he had just eaten an eyeball, it would have been nauseating, but he had swallowed the 3 eyes, known as a wretched fiend. He was out of his mind. Wow. This guy is a real psycho. She had never seen someone like this before. Even she had been told by her master and brothers that she had a unique worldview, but this man was truly beyond the realm of understanding. There was even a strange madness felt from him. However, Mok Jae-un's eyes, which had been fine, suddenly turned white and trembled. Why was he suddenly acting like this? Could it be that he had suffered some side effects from eating the Three Eyes eyeball? Hey, are you okay? As Yeo Su-rin tried to approach Mok Jae-un, she had to step back because the monster beast Hyun-won, not missing this opportunity, was trying to shake off its held wing. Of all times. Yeo Su-rin hurriedly took out a talisman from her waist and formed a hand seal with her left hand. Although she had easily killed the monster beast Toru earlier due to luck, a monster beast at the level of a monster was not easy to deal with, even for someone close to a master diviner like herself. At that moment, one of Hyun-won's wings was released. It seemed that Mok Jae-un's grip had weakened due to his worsening condition. No, why did he have to eat that thing? Why did he create such a troublesome situation? This man was really exhausting. Yeol. J. Jean. Gi. From the earth-pressing seal to the single-wheel seal, followed by the inner restraining seal and the outer restraining seal. It was the hand seals of the six-person suppression technique. At the same time, the talisman contained the incantation of a guardian deity that momentarily weakened demonic energy. Flap flap. The monster beast Hyun-won fully spread its huge wings. When it spread its wings, strange patterns could be seen inside, resembling two huge eyes, which was eerie. Moreover, the force of the demonic energy spreading in all directions was no ordinary matter. It was enough to make the legs of average diviners tremble. Yeo Su-rin gritted her teeth. Come at me. Even though I may look like this, I'm the top disciple of the diviner god Scarlet-tailed Old Immortal. With that, Yeo Su-rin pointed the hand seal Gi at the monster beast Hyun-won and tried to use the six-person suppression technique. But at that very moment, stop. As soon as that shout was heard, the monster beast Hyun-won, which had spread its wings to attack, folded its wings. Then, as if surrendering, it lowered its head and upper body. Surprisingly, the target was Mok Jae-un. Yeo Su-rin's eyes widened. Why was the monster beast Hyun-won obeying Mok Jae-un's command? Come to think of it, that wasn't the only strange thing. Since Mok Jae-un had chewed and swallowed the Three Eyes eyeball, the familiars who had lost their master should have naturally had their bonds severed and either disappeared or died. But the monster beast Hyun-won was still alive and well. What's going on? At her question, Mok Jae-un smiled brightly and replied, Who knows? What on earth was happening? She couldn't help but be genuinely curious about what had occurred. Of course, the only one who somewhat understood this was Chong Ryong inside the wooden figurine in Mok Jae-un's bosom. So this works. Yes, it works. Mok Jae-un, who had been contemplating what to do with the Three Eyes, who had formed a bond as a familiar, just ate it on a whim. He had tried it before, making a vessel or medium of a vengeful spirit into a familiar by eating it, so he thought it might work, and it truly succeeded. The bond of the familiar had been transferred. And one more strange thing had happened. After eating the Three Eyes, he had absorbed its demonic energy, and it had concentrated particularly in his right eye. When he unleashed the Three Eyes' demonic energy, like when he opened the spirit eye, surprisingly the flow of energy became more distinct. Roar. Look at this. Even the trajectory of the sword he had swung earlier had turned into a residual notion and left a trace. It wasn't just a trace of true energy. Even the form of demonic energy transforming into a technique was faintly visible as a residual notion. At this, the corners of Mok Jae-un's mouth twitched. This could be useful. Chapter 176, Three Eyes 4. What was that just now? Yeo Su-rin looked at Mok Jae-un's face in puzzlement. If her eyes weren't deceiving her, although it was brief, Mok Jae-un's right eye had turned a silver color, and an energy that couldn't be specified as curse power or demonic energy was felt. But it was only for a moment and quickly disappeared. I'm sure there was a change in his eye. When it returned to its original state, that strange energy also vanished. What was going on? Flap flap. A small bird flying around Mok Jae-un. It was the shrunken form of the monster beast Hyun-won. When Mok Jae-un told it to hide its appearance as if he found it bothersome, it had shrunk to the size of a sparrow and was circling around. As expected of a monster beast, It concealed its demonic energy so well that it seemed difficult to notice it was a beast unless one had outstanding demonic energy or was extremely sensitive. Oh, I really don't know. The monster beast Hume-1 definitely seemed to have become Mok Jae-un's familiar. But all of this stemmed from one thing. That was, did he really become like this after eating that eyeball? It was something she found hard to understand. The eyeball was a wretched fiend and a parasitic beast that took root in a human body. Would eating such a beast make this possible? The demonic energy, blood, or flesh of beasts is nothing but poison to humans. So make sure it never enters your mouth, even by mistake. That's what her master had said. Yet Mok Jae-un had done the crazy act of eating it. And the bond of the three eyes familiar had been transferred to Mok Jae-un. Something completely contrary to the common sense she knew had occurred. How on earth did he do it? She was burning with the desire to ask. However, even if she asked, it seemed unlikely that Mok Jae-un would tell her. Just like the martial arts sects and factions, if the pavilion or sect of sorcery was different, they had their own techniques and did not share them with other sects. In the first place, asking about it was considered taboo. I'm really curious. But once her curiosity was piqued, she had to resolve it to feel at ease. For Yeo Su-rin, Mok Jae-un was a collection of curiosities. If he had really eaten a monster and made its bond his own, she wanted to dissect and study him. As Yeo Su-rin stared at Mok Jae-un like that, she came up with a good idea. Right. Then I can keep observing him closely. There was a very simple solution. Not only that, she had learned that there was another three eyes besides the one that had been one with diviner Cho Tae-chong. Then she hadn't completed her master's order yet. There was still a reason for her to stay here longer. Hey. Yes. I think I'll. Yeo Su-rin's eyes widened as she tried to speak to Mok Jae-un. The reason was none other than the fact that Mok Jae-un had opened the lid of what seemed to be a coffin placed next to the desk in the pavilion master's office. And there was a person inside. What is that? Wait, that person? It's not a living person. That's right. Mok Jae-un shook his head. Inside was something that anyone would consider a corpse. That corpse was none other than the former primal killing pavilion master, In Seo. Ugh. Seeing In Seo groaning, Yeo Su-rin said, "Is this a Jiangshi? No, a corpse ghost. You have good eyes." Mok Jae-un's eyes flashed with interest as Yeo Su-rin immediately recognized In Seo's condition. This woman may be chatty, but she was definitely a capable diviner. Both in terms of knowledge of sorcery and demonic energy. No way. That corpse ghost, could it be the primal killing pavilion master? That's right. You recognize him. Of course. It took a while to enter the main hall building, but I've been inside the primal killing pavilion since 3 months ago. During that time she had familiarized herself with the face of the primal killing pavilion master, In Seo. But she hadn't expected him to be in this state after not seeing him for half a month. Yeo Su-rin let out a sigh and said, "Why did the primal killing pavilion master end up like this? Could it be that he was attacked by the three eyes?" At her words, Mok Jae-un shook his head. "No, that's not it." "It's not? Then who on earth did this?" "The primal killing pavilion master may have left the 64 pavilions, but he's still a diviner. Excluding the top 6 diviner gods, the highest level in sorcery was called Master Diviner. For a skilled Master Diviner to become a corpse ghost like this, only a diviner of the same level or higher could have done this. However, I did it." So Master Mok did it. What? Yeo Su-rin looked at Mok Jae-un's face in surprise. In Seo was the primal killing pavilion master, who had a high reputation even among the Master Diviner of the 64 pavilions. And Mok Jae-un had made him like this? Really? Yes, really. Did you think it might be fake? With those words, Mok Jae-un clicked his tongue and formed a hand seal. J. Jean. Then he struck In Seo's chest with his palm. A strange thing happened. The curse binding In Seo was released and his neck bulged, and then, Kubleg. Something like intertwined tree branches violently popped out. Every time they came out, In Seo's entire body shook violently. It seemed that the tree branches had spread throughout his body, fixing him in place so he couldn't move. Wow. That's really vicious. Vicious. Yeo Su-rin clicked her tongue at this sight. At this, Mok Jae-un chuckled and said, "This wasn't done by me. It was probably done by the three eyes Cho Tae-chong." The three eyes? Yes. In Seok wasn't supposed to be here originally. He had told the dead diviner Zhou Yuigong to take care of it if he managed to take the position of the primal killing pavilion master. But his presence here meant that the Three Eyes Cho Taechong had noticed his existence because of this. It was fortunate that it was resolved before things got more complicated. Otherwise, things would have gotten tangled. And is it fortunate? Mok Jiangun was already pondering one thing. With the death of the diviner Zhou Yuigong, he had lost the person who would control the primal killing pavilion. But with the living corpse ghost, the former primal killing pavilion master in Seok, that problem was solved. With him around, he could fill the void left by the dead Zhou Yuigong and Cho Taechong. Kuug. Swish. As the long, extending tree branches were all pulled out, in Seok's body twitched, and then he sat up as if he had regained consciousness. Then he slightly bowed to Mok Jiangun. Hiya. You really made him like this. No, how did you subdue the primal killing pavilion master? I'm good at it. Good. Will you keep answering like that? Yes. Crunch crunch. Yeo Su-rin chewed her fingernails and glared at Mok Jiangun. He was the most troublesome man she had ever met. Seriously. As she chewed her fingernails, she let out a sigh and said, Then you won't tell me why you made him like that, right? Yes. Although we had a deal, our relationship ends here, doesn't it? What? You'll be leaving now, won't you? Yeo Su-rin looked at Mok Jiangun with a strange expression. Although they hadn't known each other for long and their relationship was short, they had faced a common enemy while risking their lives, so she thought they had become somewhat close. But with these words she realized that Mok Jiangun didn't trust her at all. This person, is he very shy? Yeo Su-rin clicked her tongue with a twisted expression. Even though it was a bet, she had given him a disposable treasure, so she felt disappointed. Fine. Now that it had come to this, she would make him treat her warmly with his own mouth out of spite. Yeo Su-rin, who had inwardly set her ambition, said, I'm not going back. You're not going back? Yes. Why? Didn't you say there's one more Three Eyes? That's... Mok Jiangun clicked his tongue inwardly as if he had made a mistake. He had asked about this, thinking it was important information, but because of this, Yeo Su-rin also had a reason to stay here longer. No, was it a situation where she couldn't leave yet? Is that so? But there won't be any more inside the main hall, so you'll have to search hard. What? You're not going to search? Me? Yes. Judging from what you said to the Three Eyes earlier, weren't you trying to find the other Three Eyes? No. I was just checking if there was another one. No, then you're not going to search? Yes. At Mok Jiangun's words, Yeo Su-rin showed a troubled expression. She had intended to observe Mok Jiangun under the pretext of searching for the Three Eyes together. What should she do about this? Yeo Su-rin, whose mind had become complicated, pouted her lips like a duck and said, No, isn't that really mean of you? What's mean about it? Even though this is also a relationship, can't you help me a little? Thanks to me, you were able to kill the Three Eyes here without difficulty. At her words, Mok Jiangun replied nonchalantly. Wasn't it because our goals aligned? And the one who risked his life was me. As I recall, Miss Yeo, you were always ready to run away. That was just what I said. If things had turned out differently, I would have helped. Is that so? Yeo Su-rin stamped her feet with an indignant expression and said, It's true. Yes, I'm sure it is. Mok Jiangun placed his hand on the head of the former primal killing pavilion master, in Seok, as if he had no interest. Then he infused the energy of death, the death chi, into Seok's head. Whoosh. A corpse ghost is literally close to a corpse state. Hover. Yeo Su-rin's eyes widened. She had thought that the primal killing pavilion master in Seok was simply a corpse ghost. But before she knew it, the state of the primal killing pavilion master in Seok was changing to resemble his living appearance rather than a corpse. Even the color of his skin was turning from purple to a flesh tone. A living corpse ghost? A living corpse ghost. It was a forbidden secret technique of the six-person spirit summoning technique. When the heart's blood of the caster is fed to a person who has just died, and the yin energy of those who have recently died is gathered in one place, and a technique is performed, this is born. Literally, it is a living corpse ghost. A living corpse ghost? The reason she was surprised was simple. Creating a living corpse ghost was even more difficult than an ordinary corpse ghost or jiangshi. To create a single living corpse ghost, Nearly 30 people had to be killed, and their energy had to be gathered together. Moreover, living corpse ghosts had too many weaknesses. If they couldn't periodically kill people and fill themselves with the yin energy of the dead, their bodies would rot, so their utility was extremely low. Master Mok. That's a forbidden technique. Ah, it was. Mok Jiongun looked at Yeo Surin with a cold gaze. Come to think of it, she was from the Harmonious Immortal Pavilion, which belonged to the proper diviner group, the 64 pavilions. On the other hand, the Primal Killing Pavilion was a group that had left the 64 pavilions, joined hands with martial arts groups, and performed all sorts of forbidden techniques. Therefore, Mok Jiongun didn't place much significance on forbidden techniques. However, in reality, among diviners, forbidden techniques were literally sorcery that should not be performed. Should I kill her? Mok Jiongun had intended to let her go since she had been helpful. But now that she seemed like she might become an obstacle, he was contemplating whether to kill her. Meanwhile, Yeo Surin spoke with sparkling eyes. No, how did you do it? What? To give vitality to a living corpse ghost, you need the yin energy of those who have just died. That's why it was a forbidden technique, but could it be that you found a way to infuse vitality even without that? At Yeo Surin's words, Mok Jiongun let out a soft sigh. It was because she was creating her own excuses. So Mok Jiongun lightly nodded his head. At this, Yeo Surin approached Mok Jiongun with sparkling eyes and said, "Where are you really from? Are you perhaps a disciple of the pavilion master of the Sanmunjeonggak? Gentle Gate Dragon Pavilion? Huh. You're not. No. Then the Submerged Moon Water Pavilion? I won't tell you, so stop asking. Can't you at least tell me that much? Yes. And I have a lot of work to do here. So let's part ways here. Otherwise he omitted the latter part about having to kill her. He hoped she would understand. But Yeo Surin clasped her hands together with a pleading expression and said, Master Mok, I'm really saying this because it's hard for me to find the 3 eyes alone. Can't you help me? She seemed to have misunderstood. Should he just kill her? There was no need for her anymore. Mok Jiongun said with a faint smile, I'm busy with my own work. Then I'll help Master Mok too. At those words, Mok Jiongun raised an eyebrow and asked back, You'll help me? Yes, from what I see, Master Mok wasn't here for 3 months, so it seems you're not here as a diviner, right? Since you've also learned martial arts, you're here as a martial artist, aren't you? Indeed, even though this woman was chatty, she wasn't stupid. Right? Then don't you need someone to manage this living corpse ghost? At her words, Mok Jiongun's eyes narrowed. Someone to manage the living corpse ghost. Even though it had self-will and was close to the state of a living person, a corpse ghost was still a corpse ghost. It needed to be managed from time to time to ensure there were no problems. Yeo Surin, convinced that Mok Jiongun was contemplating, smiled brightly and said, I'll actively help you with anything else you need, not just this. Master Mok, please help me find the 3 eyes too. Isn't that a fair deal? Hey, don't pretend to think about it. It seems like a not-so-bad condition. Right. But I don't trust people well. No, I keep my promises well. Because there's always the possibility of what if, you're really too much. I gave you the spare treasure without a word. Even if it can only be used once, it's worth 1,000 gold. At her words, Mok Jiongun chuckled. He knew from observing her that this woman had no ill intentions. However, Mok Jiongun didn't completely trust people. That's why he thought an appropriate measure was necessary. Do you really wish to make a deal? I told you. If you help me find the 3 eyes, I'll help you with your work too. Isn't it fair in a way? Well, I suppose so. At Mok Jiongun's somewhat positive answer, Yeo Surin's expression brightened. Then you're accepting it? I'm considering it, but if you agree to one condition. A condition? Yes. As I mentioned before, I don't trust people well. So. Swish. Mok Jiongun extended his hand. Then something was sucked from the wrist of the beheaded corpse fixed in front of the pavilion master's desk into Mok Jiongun's hand. Swish. How did you do that just now? I'm good at it. Ugh. He never properly taught her even once. Biting her lips tightly and glaring at Mok Jiongun, Yeo Surin soon recognized what was in his hand. Wait a minute. Don't tell me that's the chain of incantation. You recognize it. At this, Yeo Surin spoke with a somewhat stiffened expression, unlike before. You're not going to tell me to wear that, are you? In response to that question, Mok Jae-un smiled brightly and replied, I was going to tell you to wear it. No. That's used to subjugate the other party. It's not to unconditionally subjugate you, but think of it as a kind of safety device. When we're both done with our business, I'll release you. I can't. Absolutely not. Yeo Su-rin shouted angrily with a furious face. No matter what, this was not acceptable. The chain of incantation was a dangerous treasure that allowed the one who imposed the restraint to drive her to death as much as they wished. And he was telling her to put that on? Whirl. Meanwhile, Mok Jae-un twirled the chain of incantation and said, Then there are only two options. 2. One would be to not make a deal at all and part ways. Yes, you're quite perceptive. Then what's the other one? It's a method that I've found to be somewhat effective, so it might not be bad for you either. So what is it? Becoming my woman. Instantly Yeo Su-rin's expression stiffened. For a moment she doubted her own ears.